Hello, hello. We are back. We are live. We're going to be doing something a little different than we've done ever before. We're going to be jumping into the world of comics during World War II and talking about them and talking about how they went through and affected not only soldiers but morale back home and how people received it. So let's just jump into the slideshow real quick to get us going. Um, so during this time period, you're seeing a lot of superheroes pushing war bonds, knock out the access with bonds and stamps. They're trying to get people to go through and buy those war bonds and stamps, things like that. And they're using the superheroes to do it because not only are superheroes incredibly popular, and these comics were incredibly popular back home with kids and teens and people like that. How's it going there, Historical Possum, Recon Sarge? How you guys doing? They're also incredibly popular with the actual service members that were stationed overseas. So we're seeing that there. Um, you're having the Liberty Legion, you're having all these different super groups start forming and working together to fight against fascism, against tyranny, and against the enemies of the United States. That's where we're seeing some of this stuff start kicking in. Batman was real big in fighting spies and espionage and attacks on the U.S. soil at the time, and so you're seeing that a lot in the comic books that he had. And then Captain America. This was the introduction of Captain America. Captain America was created in 1941, before we even went into the war, as this patriotic superhero. The super soldier serum that is in the Captain America mythology today is the same stuff that we were seeing back then. So you have Captain Marvel, later Shazam, uh, going through and having all these fighting against the Nazis, the honesty race, things like that. We're seeing that stuff pick up. Captain America again, and then a big thing that's been retconned in recent years: Bucky. Bucky Barnes was actually just a kid sidekick of Captain America. He wasn't an older friend or another soldier. He was just a kid sidekick to show that the youth of America were also important in fighting against the Axis and the Nazis and kind of pushing that kind of stuff. So you're seeing those changes. Captain America completely came in 1940s and really blew up and was very popular with soldiers and those people that were fighting overseas. So thousands and thousands of comics were shipped across over to people fighting in the war. The other thing you're seeing is women's empowerment with Wonder Woman coming in. Wonder Woman did a lot of comic books talking about democracy, things like that. And one of the other things that happened during this time is Superman went from truth and justice to truth and justice in the American way. They kind of changed Superman a little bit to fit the war effort, whereas Captain America was completely and totally designed for the war effort. So that was one of the big difference. The first one we're going to get into today, right there, has already kind of a very politically incorrect name, the Japoteurs. We're going to get to our warning before we get in here. The films was produced during World War II as part of the U.S. military training and information program. It reflects the language, attitudes, wartime propaganda of the era in which it was created. Some terms and depictions in this film may be offensive or inappropriate by modern standards. They are presented here unaltered for historical and educational purposes. Mission 4938 presents the material to help viewers better understand the realities, perspectives, and messaging of the World War II period. Viewer discretion is advised. We will get into this very first one. Again, this was major propaganda done by Fleischer Films, who was the original creator of all these Supermen.
Up in the sky, look!
It's a bird!
It's a plane! It's Superman!
So while we're listening to this intro, these films only existed for
Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to soar higher
Oh, Lord, we just got reset. Let's jump up here. Let's go back here. All right, sorry about that, guys. We'll reset.
Speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to soar higher than any plane. This amazing stranger from the planet Krypton, the Man of Steel, Superman. Possessing remarkable physical strength, Superman fights a never-ending battle for truth and justice, disguised as a mild-mannered newspaper reporter, Clark Kent.
We're going to pause right there real quick. So these were done in retroscope, and retroscope was a way of drawing actual people as they were moving to kind of track them. And what was crazy is these films, each episode would be the modern equivalent of $1 million per episode. They were the most expensive of any kind of even live action being done at the time. That's the reason it only lasted for about 3 years. So we're going to jump back in here. And right there, you didn't hear the American way. This is also the first time Superman could fly. Before this, Superman just jumped. So the button to switch it over to, for some reason, you have to show the Imperial flag. And again, smoking was very prevalent in all these. We're still, the whole don't smoke, I don't feel like we have to go through and express that in here. I think that's already been pretty much explained out, but... Yeah, the jumping isn't quite as intimidating as flying.
And in operation, this stabilizer is one of the most effective yet devised, representing an investment in years of...
How'd you like to be making the test flight in this, Lois?
Maybe I will.
Fine chance.
Everyone off, please. Everyone off.
Come on, Lois. That's us.
And the retroscoping is why you're seeing such actually fairly fluid movement from these guys at this point.
Lois.
That huge expense in doing that made it a very smooth-looking cartoon as it compared to some of the others that we're seeing at this time. And again, there are a lot of throwing on a lot of stereotypes in this, and by modern standards, completely inappropriate. But at that time, they're trying to really rank up some of that kind of explaining, okay, these are the enemies and we're the good guys, and trying to show them in a certain way so that way kids picked up immediately who the bad guys were. And again, not appropriate, especially in today's day and age, but that's what they were doing at this time.
Now, nothing will interfere with voyage to Tokyo.
Except for Lois Lane is always going to get involved. It's a Superman cartoon. What is it without her giving some mischief in it?
Help. Help. Japs are stealing the giant bomber. Hurry up.
Attention, all pilots. Giant bomber being stolen. Take off immediately.
That is the calmest I've ever heard someone say that a giant bomber is being stolen.
Well-placed bomb will stop pursuit.
That giant plane, that's a bomber launching other mini planes out. That's such a wild concept.
This looks like a job for Superman.
Stop where you are. Leave plane immediately, or girl will be released.
Okay, little man. You win.
And you can see here, taking Superman multiple times to just go through a regular door. They kind of, Superman's power level kind of went up and down throughout some of these original ones. He absolutely could have just caught her, but instead... And again, he can fly. I don't know why he's like stumbling around like he can't walk through the thing. But again, they're establishing the lore of Superman at this time. A lot of it was changing because he was being adapted for the war effort.
Well, you're safe in this plane, Lois.
I'd feel much safer if Superman were here.
So there we go. That was Superman and the Japoteurs. We're going to be showing a couple others. We have 11th Hour and Destruction Inc. Again, all of these are just in that very beginning kind of lore for Superman where it's changing up a lot of stuff. That's where the Truth, Justice, and American Way. And through some of these, we're going to hear him compared to other things because everybody's heard the look up in the sky. There he is, a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman, faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive. All of those things, you're going to hear some different introductions of Superman through some of these. So that was the Japoteurs. We're going to jump into 11th Hour. Again, if you're just joining us, we'll throw the historical content notice up again because each of these are going to show a lot of not so politically correct stuff as of today. And with modern audiences, we want to make sure that we give you a warning that you're going to see some stuff that would be considered offensive. So we're going to jump into Superman and the 11th Hour. In this one, he's going through and causing trying to attack the Axis where they are, and that's kind of weird, or in their own countries, because that's kind of weird because at this time it was mainly Superman defending the home front. So without further ado, Superman in the 11th hour.
Up in the sky, look! It's a bird! It's a plane! It's Superman!
And why we got the music going. We're going to highlight again. That's that retroscope. That's the reason it cost, in today's money, $1 million an episode, just so it would have that smooth look for the animation.
In the reaches of the universe, there once existed a planet known as Krypton, a planet that burned like a green star in the distant heavens. There, civilization was far advanced and had brought forth a race of supermen whose mental and physical powers were developed to the absolute peak of human perfection. But there came a day when giant quakes threatened to destroy Krypton forever. One of the planet's leading scientists, sensing the approach of doom, placed his infant son in a small rocket ship and sent it hurtling in the direction of the Earth just as Krypton exploded. The rocket ship sped through star-studded space, landing safely on Earth with its precious burden, Krypton's sole survivor. A passing motorist found the uninjured child and took it to an orphanage. As the years went by and the child grew to maturity, he found himself possessed of amazing physical powers. Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. This amazing stranger from the planet Krypton, the Man of Steel, Superman. Possessing remarkable physical strength, Superman fights a never-ending battle for truth and justice, disguised as a mild-mannered newspaper reporter, Clark Kent.
Before we get further into this, do you catch some of the other things that changed in the lore of Superman over time? He wasn't raised by the Kents on a farm. He stayed in an orphanage, and then grew up that way. That was a big change. And that able to leap tall buildings, that's in there because, before this, he didn't fly. He just was able to jump really far and really high. And so we're starting to see where that lore starts coming in, and they start changing it over time. And that happens with all superheroes, but especially when they're preparing it for wartime, they change quite a lot.
Hello, Clark. Are you awake?
Well, say, who could sleep for a racket like this?
But it's been going on every night since we've been interned. What do you suppose it could be?
Could be sabotage, I hope.
Me too. But who? Clark, do you suppose...
Yes, Lois?
Oh, nothing. Just a silly hunch that maybe Superman might be over here.
Quiet. Do not talk. Shanasta! A sabotage must stop at once. Konetawa!
So again, this is the first time that we're actually showing Superman leaving the United States and now actually sabotaging and playing an integral part in the war effort, trying to hurt the Axis powers. And so this is kind of a radical departure from the Superman that people knew before, and again, it's building up different lore. Also kind of a radical difference in Superman where he's actually causing harm to people and things like that. You don't really see that with Superman. But again, they're really trying to beef up the war effort, get kids and families dedicated to helping. And a lot of times they were using these and then later on saying, do your part, buy war bonds. So this is where this comes in for the propaganda aspect from its time.
I just saw him. Swell chance they've got of catching him. Kind of clumsy of Superman there to be mangled up by a bunch of steel girders. But this went along with, in the comic books at this time, they were saying America can't lose with Superman on its side. And so it was giving kids confidence that America was going to win. Superman was there to help. I love the logic of the bullets didn't hurt him, so let's charge at him and try to beat him up with fists.
Miss Lane,
This way, please. How does it feel to be home? Smile, please.
how about Clark Kent? Did he get away?
No. No, he's still over there. But don't worry. Superman promised to look after him.
So that was Superman in the 11th hour. And again, it's kind of Superman lore is being built around
him jumping in and helping. You saw some of those comic books and some of the images from the very beginning where it was showing buy war bonds, everybody do their part. So these actually were not given a budget by the War Department to try to produce them. They just knew that, hey, look, this is selling really well. And these comic books and these videos were very popular with troops at the time. Um, we were looking at some of the facts of it, and they were saying that it was sent by the ton comic books over to people actually fighting in combat. So now we'll jump into Superman and Destruction Inc. This is our last one for the night. Again, another version of propaganda in here. We're going to see a lot more. Dang, Lois was the real quick there at the end, not really be too concerned about Clark still being over there. Well, he had Superman on his side. You didn't really need to worry about him. So we're going to jump into Destruction Inc. Again, some of the stuff may not be politically correct today. However, this was made in World War II. And again, these were incredibly expensive to make. They were putting quite a bit of money into them, equivalent of $1 million today per episode of these. And again, none of these are longer than 15 minutes. So $1 million for the production of this is absolutely insane. That's the reason they ran from 1941 to 1943. And we're right here in the kind of the good middle zone of 1942, where they're really starting to find their stride in this. So Superman and Destruction Incorporated.
Up in the sky, look! It's a bird! It's a plane! It's Superman! Faster than a streak of lightning. More powerful than the pounding surf. Mightier than a roaring hurricane. This amazing stranger from the planet Krypton, the Man of Steel, Superman. Possessing remarkable physical strength, Superman fights a never-ending battle for truth and justice, disguised as a mild-mannered newspaper reporter, Clark Kent.
Flash. Following closely in the wake of a series of baffling crimes, the body of an elderly man has just been found in the marsh flats outside the city. He has been identified as the watchman at the Metropolis Munitions Plant.
There's a story, or I'm no reporter.
He is believed to be the victim of an organized ring of saboteurs. More news later.
Sounds like there might be a story at the plant, Lois.
Lois? Me name is Lois, not Lois. Gee whiz, everybody interpolates me name wrong. It's Louis. L-O-U-I-S. Lois. Louise. Lucy. Now I'm so mixed up, I don't know who I am.
And everybody knows Jimmy Olsen. Jimmy Olsen's been in the comics for the entire time, but for some reason in this 1941 series, they end up bringing in Lewis quite a bit in there as the comic relief.
Watchman, take your post in the main shop and be on the alert.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Oh, pardon me.
Report upstairs, 12 o'clock. Very important. Report upstairs, 12 o'clock. Very important. I wonder what the big shot wants.
That was a good job you did on the watchman last night. Now, how about that dynamite charge under the shops?
It's wired to the switch on the plant floor below. When the new watchman pulls that switch tonight, the whole place will...
Get that girl.
All right, men. Now load in the dynamite.
Jones speaking.
Hello, Jones. We're ready for the test. Send out the torpedo immediately.
Immediately. Here comes the torpedo now. And that old hulk out there is the target. Naturally, for experimental purposes, there is no explosive in the torpedo. Okay, stand by. Ready? Fire! Miss Lane. Miss Lane, are you all right?
Superman. They're about to blow up the plant.
Hurry, throw that switch.
Like you always see around, giant trucks marked explosives are common in everyday circumstances. But throughout the night, we've seen the same thing, sabotage as being the big fear.
Pop, Superman put an end to their little act, and this puts an end to yours, Clark Kent.
Oh, master of disguise, Clark Kent. But again, you're seeing sabotage as one of the big components of this, and that was a huge fear for both sides. Not only did the Allies worry about sabotage, the Axis powers also were very worried about sabotage. That was something that both sides put a lot of propaganda, put a lot of information about out there, and there were constant fears that the war effort was being sabotaged, and there were spies and traitors on both sides. That led to the U.S. doing some pretty heinous things, including setting up internment camps for people of Japanese and German descent. The same thing was happening all across Europe and Asia. So these fears that we're seeing in this, that they're showing to kids, aren't just made up plots for the Superman shows. They also, for along Terry Toons and some of the other ones that you'd see the sabotage stuff in, it was a real strong fear that a lot of people had that there would be sabotage. So hopefully you can kind of see where the we see the changes through comic books, whether it's Bucky Barnes, whether it's Superman himself. See that kind of going through, and people aimed more towards the war effort, but you also see some of the propaganda put in there. And so again, like we've been asking as we've been watching these, is where do you see the propaganda today? Where do you see it in, whether it's in movies, TV shows, comic books still? But keep an eye on that, because if we look at it historically and see where the propaganda was, it makes it easier to spot today when you see stuff like that. We're going to be back again. We hope that you guys have enjoyed this stuff. We'll be back Tuesday with another set of watch-alongs. I think Monday we're going to be doing back into the Fallout universe. This Saturday we'll have another Beneath the Wrong-Colored Moon. Our story's written by C.W. Boylan. So we hope you join us for that. And then on Sunday, of course, our What We Carry poetry series is going to be back up. So we hope you've enjoyed what you've seen tonight. You've enjoyed being with us here tonight. And we will be back here soon. Check out all of our stuff. We have some great stuff in our Fallout watch-along, our Wasteland Wednesday watch-alongs, and then, of course, in our Wasteland Wednesday Fallout play, and then we have our watch-along series. So take a look at those things. We have a lot of great stuff on here, and we thank all of you guys who have been subscribing and following and being here through our streams, and hope you're learning a lot of stuff from this, and we're glad to have you. But until next time, stay strong, stay true, stay Frankie. We'll see you here real soon.
National anthem.